We are entrusting the day and the endeavor to the Lord. Let's go. Welcome to my channel where I visit many good books but live in the Bible. My name is Sarah Christine, and today I would like to talk about none other than The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I picked this up for a class on imagining the apocalypse, and everyone in the class who had already read it said to a person that this was the bleakest book they had ever read, which would be noteworthy on its own, but it was all the more so because the book, which is regarded as the most hopeful thing that Cormac McCarthy ever wrote, is also The Road. So get you a book that can be both. Side note, I think I'm a Cormac McCarthy fan. Like, can I say that if I've only read 2 things that he's written? I think I can. But I will check back after I have read his magnum opus, Blood Meridian, which I fully expect to give me the heebie-jeebies. Because The Road, which is about the good guys, had moments where I was like, oh no, no, no! All I'm gonna say is hip bones. If you know, you know. And if The Road is Cormac McCarthy writing about the good guys, Blood Meridian is him writing about the bad. Click the subscribe button if you want to be notified when I review that. Back to The Road. This book follows a father and son duo known only as the man/Papa and the boy respectively as they trek down the seemingly interminable road after some unnamed apocalyptic event has caused inland temperatures to plummet and basically killed everything on the planet. Everything except human beings, that is. We are still kicking, but the vast majority of people that are left have added their fellow human beings to the food pyramid.
That's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
So this is no leisurely stroll down the open road. On top of progressively starving to death, the man and his son are constantly on edge because at any given moment, a group of Hannibal Lecters could pop out of the bushes. Now, given that description, you may be surprised that The Road won the Pulitzer Prize. But if you crack open the spine, you will see that cannibalism and hip bones cannot disguise and may in fact even highlight what is at bottom a story about the love that exists between a father and a son. Though interestingly, the phrase, "I love you," never appears in the novel, not once. And when I learned that, I was like, wait, is the dad Asian again? If you know, you know. Anyways, suffice to say that this book, for all the cortisol spikes that it gave me late into the night, was well worth the read because it impressed on me 3 things that I'm going to treat as marching orders in a post-apocalypse, certainly, but also just whenever next I find myself walking a long, dark road or on a hard journey. And they are 1, don't give up, 2, don't give in, and 3, carry the fire. Let's talk about them. Mild spoilers ahead. When The Road begins, we are dropped right into the post-apocalypse. We get the man, Papa, and his son, the boy, on the road trekking south to beat the cold. But we aren't told exactly what happened or why they're all alone. And I, for one, maybe because my mom and I are so close, was like, where'd the mama go? And I didn't have to wait long to find out. On page 55, we get a flashback where we find out that the mama gave up. Convinced that the future held only assault, gruesome death, and then being added to the food pyramid, she went off one night and she slit her wrists. I'll be so honest, when I read that, I was transported back to a trip that the Water Buffalo and I took last summer to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. Because at the end of that museum, there is a video loop of interviews with Holocaust survivors where they talk about their experiences and particularly about how they managed to not give up in the midst of horrors that would make most people, capital Q, quit. I'll insert the clip of the quote, which has lived rent-free in my head ever since.
Giving up is a final solution to a temporary problem. Our problem wasn't so temporary. Nevertheless, it had passed.
I wish the mama in The Road could have heard that. Though, given the state of mind that she was in, she probably would have retorted that the post-apocalypse wasn't any sort of temporary. It was permanent. And it very well might have been. But the fact that the man, her husband, who's living in the same nightmare scenario that she is, did not want to give up and did his best to convince her not to do what she did means that something more than the permanence or the impermanence of awful circumstances determines whether or not someone gives up and quits. Indeed, when it comes to giving up, to quitting, what's going on outside you matters much less than what's going on within. We see that on page 57 after the man pleads with the woman not to give up, to think of him, to think of the boy. And she replies, "My heart was ripped out of me the night he was born, so don't ask for sorrow now. There is none." When I read that, I was like, there it is. That's the difference. She has become heartless. She can no longer feel sorrow. She no longer loves. And therefore, she gives up. I was actually talking with a friend recently who I will call the conductress, who has done extreme relief work in war zones about what determines whether a person quits when faced with seemingly impossible circumstances. And she was like, most people are so quick to quit, and all the quicker to give excuses like, I physically couldn't do, fill in the blank, whatever it is. But from her perspective and experiences, that's not a very compelling argument. It just means that quitting or not wasn't that important. When it is, mothers, for instance, find the strength to lift cars off their kids. They don't quit. In essence, when love is present, giving up is not an option. You will find the resources, the strength within to not give up, to not quit, even when it is agonizing to persist. Conversely, when a person no longer loves, they will almost certainly give up. It's like that song by Paloma Faith, "Only Love Can Hurt Like This," but it would be more accurate to say, only love can persist like this. If you want an in real life example of this love-powered persistence in the midst of hellish circumstances, I give you Desmond Dawes, a combat medic and the first conscientious objector to win the Medal of Honor for single-handedly saving the lives of over 50 men during World War II at the Battle of Hacksaw Ridge. When he was asked how he managed to save all those men, Dawes said,
I was praying the whole time. I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more. When I got this, I said, Lord, please help me get one more.
And the Lord did, which checks, because the Lord, who is, 1 John 4:8, love, is also an infinite resource. And whatever circumstances we're in, we can call on him and receive the strength to persist, to not give up, to not quit. Colossians 1:11 tells us that he will strengthen us with all power according to his glorious might for all endurance and patience with joy. And I can't resist giving another example of this love-powered, that is, God-powered persistence in the midst of hellish circumstances. And it is the 19th century writer Annie Johnston Flint, who shortly after high school was stricken with a very severe form of arthritis that left her frail and bedridden. Despite this, Annie didn't give up. She kept writing. In fact, one of the poems that she wrote after she got sick, "He Giveth More Grace," is one of my all-time favorites and has since become a world-famous hymn. And it goes like this. He giveth more grace as the burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength as the labors increase. To added affliction he addeth his mercy. To multiplied trials he multiplies peace. When we have exhausted our stores of endurance, when our strength has failed and the day is half gone, when we reach the end of our hoarded resources, the Father's full giving has only begun. Fear not that thy need shall exceed his provision. Our God ever yearns his resources to share. Lean hard on the arm, everlasting, availing. The Father, both thee and thy load will upbear. His love has no limit, his grace has no measure, his power no boundary known unto man. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth and giveth and giveth again. Psalm 27:13 says, I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And a big part of God's manifest and manifold goodness is his persistence, is his love that does not quit, but gives and gives and gives and gives, even when faced with adverse circumstances. Like we were told in Romans 10:21, day by day, he reaches out his hand to a devious and defiant people. When it comes to his little ones, to his flock, God gives and gives and gives. He does not give up. It is like the man says on page 137, this is what the good guys do. They keep trying. They don't give up. That is correct. Good guys don't give up. And they also don't give in. Which brings me to my second marching order. Let's talk about it. As has already been said, one of the main dangers in this post-apocalyptic horror show of lawless itinerants is being roasted on a spit. And that's not a once-in-a-while occurrence. The impression we are given in The Road is that most everyone has taken to hunting and eating human beings because people are starving and meat is meat. But the man and the boy are distinct. On page 128, after the man finds a field filled with hard, brown, shriveled apples, they sat by the side of the road and ate the last of the apples. "What is it?" the man said. "Nothing. We'll find something to eat. We always do." The boy didn't answer. The man watched him. "That's not it, is it?" "It's okay." "Tell me." The boy looked away down the road. "I want you to tell me. It's okay." The boy shook his head. "Look at me," the man said. The boy turned and looked. He looked like he'd been crying. "Just tell me." "We wouldn't ever eat anybody, would we?" "No, of course not." "Even if we were starving?" "We're starving now." "You said we weren't." "I said we weren't dying. I didn't say we weren't starving." "But we wouldn't?" "No, we wouldn't." "No matter what?" "No, no matter what." "Because we're the good guys." "Yes." We see there that no matter what, they are not going to eat people. In fact, they go even further than that to differentiate themselves as good, not bad. One day, as they're walking along the road, the boy hears something. This is page 82. They listened. Then, in the distance, he heard a dog bark. He turned and looked toward the darkening town. "It's a dog," he said. "A dog?" "Yes." "Where'd it come from?" "I don't know." "We're not going to kill it, are we, Papa?" "No, we're not going to kill it." He looked down at the boy, shivering in his coats. He bent over and kissed him on his gritty brow. "We won't hurt the dog," he said. "I promise." Now, some people reading that might think, good grief, it's a dog and you're starving. Just eat it. I mean, I've got family who grew up in places where eating dog was a delicacy. Like, you didn't even need to be starving for someone to say, as my Uncle Sam says, "Yum yum, gimme some." But our duo's refusal to hunt and eat the dog is just a further demonstration of their resolve. They're not going to be like the bad guys in any respect. They are not going to predate what has already been made desolate. They're not going to give in. They're going to be different. In one of the most differentiating and tender scenes in the novel, the man and his son find a buried bunker filled with food like canned pears and corned beef. And before they eat, the boy asks if they should say thank you to the people who made everything. This is page 145. "Do you think we should thank the people?" "The people?" "The people who gave us all this." "Oh, well, yes, I guess we could do that." "Will you do it?" "Why don't you?" "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You know how to say thank you." The boy sat staring at his plate. He seemed lost. The man was about to speak when he said, "Dear people, thank you for all this food and stuff. We know that you saved it for yourself, and if you were here, we wouldn't eat it, no matter how hungry we were. And we're sorry that you didn't get to eat it, and we hope that you're safe in heaven with God." He looked up. "Is that okay?" he said. "Yes, I think that's okay." Oh, that scene. I know so many people say they cry at the ending, but for me, it was that prayer that got me. I was like, I don't want anything bad to anything worse to happen to the two of you, particularly the boy. In fact, I kept thinking of Hebrews 11:38, where it says the world was not worthy of them. And fact check, yes, because when basically all the other people on the planet have given in to everything, up to and including eating their fellow human beings, the man and the boy have drawn many lines in the sand that say, no matter what, we are not going to give in. We are not going to do that. We are not going to be like them. It was pretty incredible to read, especially since I just read The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I'll link the review I did of that below. But this is a similar story in as much as it's set in kind of a apocalyptic moment. But the protagonist in this book, Lauren, admits that she is willing to adopt bad guy tactics if they would benefit her group of travelers and religious adherents. She says outright on page 223, we might have to rob to survive and even terrorize, to scare off, or kill enemies. The boy, on the other hand, is like, if you were here, dear bunker people, we would not eat your food no matter what. Now, implicit in that no matter what is even if we were starving to death. In essence, what the boy is saying is, I would rather die than in any way harm my fellow man. And in thinking about that, I was reminded of Sirius Black's confrontation with Peter Pettigrew in the Shrieking Shack in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Because Peter is like, well, if I hadn't ratted out Lily and James, the Dark Lord would have killed me. Like, what would you have done, Sirius?
I'm so serious. What would you have done?
And Sirius doesn't miss a beat. He's like, I would have died. I would have died rather than betray my friends.
I would have died. I would have died rather than betray my friends.
That is basically straight out of John 15:13, when Jesus tells his disciples that there's no greater love than this, to lay down your life for a friend. So we see that once again, as was the case with not giving up, love is the differentiator, the thing that determines whether or not a person will give in to the darkness. So whether facing a dark lord, as in Harry Potter, or a dark world, as in The Road, love is what will keep us from giving in to both. Which makes sense when we look at the Bible, because we are told that the same God who is 1 John 4:8 love is also light. Jesus said in John 8:12, I am the light of the world. Whoever believes in me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And John 1:5 tells us that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So love will not only keep us from giving up in the darkness, but it will also keep us from giving into it too. And now for the final marching order, which goes beyond not giving up and not giving in to actually fighting the darkness, and it is carry the fire. On page 83, the man wakes up from a freezing sleep beneath an overpass where he and the boy have taken shelter in a parked car, and he realizes he can't remember where they are. He woke in the night and lay listening. He couldn't remember where he was. The thought made him smile. Where are we? He said. What is it, Papa? Nothing. We're okay. Go to sleep. We're gonna be okay, aren't we, Papa? Yes, we are. And nothing bad is going to happen to us? That's right. Because we're carrying the fire. Yes, because we're carrying the fire. When I read that, I actually wrote a question mark in the margin, like, what does carry the fire mean? And I did not get an answer until page 114, when the man put a gun to his son's head. Why? Because the man had accidentally led them into a den full of cannibals, and rather than let them violate the boy before eating him, the man was going to mercy kill him. Page 114. Now is the time. Curse God and die. What if it doesn't fire? It has to fire. What if it doesn't fire? Could you crush that beloved skull with a rock? Is there such a being within you of which you know nothing? Can there be? Hold him in your arms. Just so. The soul is quick. Pull him towards you. Kiss him. Quickly. When I read that, I was like, oh, that's what carrying the fire meant. A willingness to fire the gun you're carrying into your son's and presumably your own head, rather than enduring the full cannibal experience. And when carrying the fire came up again on page 129, my suspicions seemed to be confirmed, because it came up in the context of the boy asking, as we have already discussed, whether or not they would ever eat a person, and the dad says, no, no matter what. And his justification for that answer is because we are carrying the fire. To my reading, I took that as the dad saying, if we get to the point where we would need to eat human meat, we will put the muzzle of the gun between our teeth. We will eat a bullet before we eat a human being. So that's what I thought carrying the fire meant. But in my defense, Cormac McCarthy has a whole book, The Sunset Limited. I'll link my review of it below, where suicide is defended and even advocated by one of the protagonists who wants to jump in front of a train. And this man didn't even have the excuse of cannibals on his heels trying to boil his leg. However, as I kept reading The Road, my interpretation of carrying the fire got revised. And that happened primarily when I stopped thinking about carrying the fire in terms of the man's perspective and instead considered what it means through the son's eyes. If you've read The Road, you know that midway through the novel, tensions begin to accrue between the father and the son because they have some disagreement about what they, as the good guys, ought to do. That's because the man's definition of good guys has to mainly do with what they will not do, like eat people. But the boy doesn't want their goodness to be defined solely by what they won't do. He actually wants to do good, to help people. In this, Edward Fairfax Rochester of Jane Eyre is a helpful dichotomizer because at one point he asked Jane whether this competing suitor's goodness consists mainly in his guiltlessness of vice or in his prowess in virtue. I.e., is a man good because he doesn't do bad things, or is he good because he does do good things? In The Road, the man is in the former camp, while the boy is in the latter. Indeed, to the boy, carrying the fire, being the good guys, means doing good to those in need. And he's constantly on the lookout for opportunities, and one day when this ragged old man crosses their path, the boy succeeds. Page 163. The father is reluctant to help and says, "We can't stay here. We have to go." "But he's scared, Papa." "I don't think you should touch him." "Maybe we could give him something to eat." He stood looking off down the road. "Damn," he whispered. He looked down at the old man. Perhaps he'd turn into a god and they to trees. "All right," he said. He untied the tarp and folded it back and rummaged through the canned goods and came up with a tin of fruit cocktail and took the can opener from his pocket and opened the tin and folded back the lid and walked over and squatted and handed it to the boy. "What about a spoon?" "He's not getting a spoon." The boy took the tin and handed it to the old man. "Take it," he whispered. "Here." The old man raised his eyes and looked at the boy. The boy gestured at him with the tin. He looked like someone trying to feed a vulture broken in the road. "It's okay," he said. The old man lowered his hand from his head. He blinked, gray blue eyes half buried in the thin and sooty creases of his skin. "Take it," the boy said. He reached with his scrawny claws and took it and held it to his chest. "Eat it," the boy said. "It's good." He made tipping motions with his hands. The old man looked down at the tin. He took a fresh grip and lifted it, his nose wrinkling. His long and yellowed claws scrabbled at the metal. Then he tipped it and drank. The juice ran down his filthy beard. He lowered the can, chewing with difficulty. He jerked his head when he swallowed. "Look, Papa," the boy whispered. "I see," the man said. The boy turned and looked at him. "I know what the question is," the man said. "The answer is no." "What's the question?" "Can we keep him?" "We can't." "I know." "You know." "Yeah." "All right." "Can we give him something else?" "Let's see how he does with this." They watched him eat. When he was done, he sat holding the empty tin and looking down into it as if more might appear. "What do you want to give him?" "What do you think he should have?" "I don't think he should have anything. What do you want to give him?" "We could cook something on the stove. He could eat with us." "You're talking about stopping for the night." "Yeah." He looked down at the old man and he looked at the road. "All right," he said, "but then tomorrow we go on." The boy didn't answer. "That's the best deal you're going to get." "Okay." "Okay" means okay. It doesn't mean we negotiate another deal tomorrow. "What's negotiate?" "It means talk about it some more and come up with some other deal. There is no other deal. This is it." "Okay." "Okay." We see there that at the boy's insistence, they give this old man food and eventually build him a fire so that he can be warm while he eats. And in reading that scene, I was like, oh, that's what carrying the fire means. It means carrying and sharing warmth and tenderness, even in the midst of, especially in the midst of, darkness. That's what the boy does with this old man. And even though he doesn't get such a comprehensive opportunity to do good again, his determination to carry the fire to those they encounter on the road does more than bring warmth. It brings hope. Most notably to the man, his papa, whose outlook and condition has steadily diminished as they have trekked down the road. On page 273, this is the state the man is in. He coughed all the time, and the boy watched him spitting blood, slumping along, filthy, ragged, hopeless. He'd stop and lean on the cart, and the boy would go on and then stop and look back, and he would raise his weeping eyes and see him standing there in the road, looking back at him from some unimaginable future, glowing in that waste like a tabernacle. In the Bible, the tabernacle was the place where God dwelt with Israel. It was a moving sanctuary where the Ark of the Covenant was kept and where priests would minister and make sacrifices as the people of God sojourned through the wilderness. In the road, in the midst of this post-apocalyptic wilderness, wasted and wandering down a dark and lonely road, the man looks at his boy, this tabernacle, this place where God dwells with man, and feels hope. On page 281, the man thinks to himself, goodness will find the little boy. It always has. It will again. Yes and amen. And that is not exclusive to the boy. We are told in Psalm 23:6 that surely God's goodness and faithful, persistent love will follow us down all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And what's more, not only will we dwell with him, he will dwell with us. We are told in Ephesians 2:22 that in Christ we are being built together for God's dwelling in the Spirit. Yeah. In Jesus, we are God's tabernacles, his Acts 1:8 witnesses who carry the fire, the warmth and hope of his gospel to all the ends of the earth. And if you have found yourself growing cold with no hope as you trek down a long and dark road, I pray that you would come to Jesus, who promises not only to give rest to the weary and the heavy laden, but also to stay with us no matter how dark the road as we nightly pitch our moving tent a day's march nearer home. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was edifying, encouraging, and entertaining, and I hope you will continue to join me as I visit many good books, but live in the Bible. Where are you? Where are you? Blood Meridian, where you at?